They say some secrets don't stay buried. They wait. Hidden beneath the streets we walk, beneath the stories we think we know, this one was never meant to be found. It was hidden under Boston's old cobblestones, sealed away with silence and fear for more than a century. It was hidden for a reason, buried deep under the old cobblestones of Boston and covered by more than a century of silence. No one was ever meant to uncover this story. The official records were destroyed, the witnesses disappeared, and the house on Beacon Hill, the place where it all took place, was torn down quietly in the middle of the night. Every brick was crushed to dust and dumped into the harbor. They wanted to erase it completely, from memory, from history itself. But some truths have roots that grow even through stone. They leak through time, staining the present with questions no one was ever supposed to ask. And the question that haunted a few people all the way to their graves was simple yet terrifying. What really happened to the Callahan sisters, Ara and Isolde? In the spring of 1871, they were 16 and 17 years old, bright, admired, and beautiful beyond measure, daughters of a wealthy shipping magnate. By the winter of 1891, 20 years later, they were still 16 and 17 years old, not just in looks, in every possible biological way. They hadn't aged a single day. And the secret behind that strange miracle was not a blessing. It was a trade, a dark bargain made in the shadows of one of America's most respected cities. How did such a thing vanish from history? How could something so unnatural, so shocking, be completely buried? The answer is more frightening than the mystery itself, because it shows that the world you think you know might only be a carefully staged illusion. And behind that curtain are forces that bend the very laws of nature for their own power and profit. This isn't only a story about two girls who stopped time. It's about what was stolen from them, and from the rest of us, to keep their secret hidden. It's about a kind of power so deep it still shapes our world today, though most people have no idea it exists. But you're about to. The story didn't come looking for me. It found me. Inside an old leather trunk I bought at an estate sale in the countryside of Massachusetts. I expected to find heirlooms, maybe some old family keepsakes. Instead, there was only one thing inside, a small wax-sealed journal. It belonged to Dr. Alistair Finch, once one of Boston's most trusted physicians, later disgraced and locked away in an asylum, where he died in 1902. His only crime was that he refused to forget the Callahan sisters. You're not just hearing this story, you're stepping into it. Dr. Finch's journal begins not with the sisters, but with their father, Marcus Callahan, a man who rose from the docks to become one of the most powerful men in Boston. He was clever, cold, and haunted by one overwhelming fear, the fear of loss. After his wife died suddenly of a fever, something inside him broke. He became obsessed with permanence, with holding on to what he loved. He poured money into experiments, strange sciences, and new philosophies drifting in from Europe. He was a man, Finch wrote, who would make a deal with any devil if it meant keeping what was his. In 1871, his daughters were his world. Alara, the older one, was sharp-minded and curious. Isolde was soft, gentle, an artist who saw beauty in everything. They were the center of his life, but also the center of his growing madness. Even a cough or chill would send Marcus into panic. He kept them locked away in a golden cage, shielded from the world. Finch, as the family doctor, watched with concern. He saw two bright young women being slowly smothered by their father's possessive love. Love that had turned desperate, fearful, and dangerous. Then, in May 1871, both sisters fell ill with the same wasting disease that had killed their mother. Finch's entries grew frantic. He described Marcus as a man on the edge of insanity, refusing to accept reality, locking Finch out of their rooms for days. When he was finally let back in, the girls were completely changed. The fever was gone, the weakness gone. They looked radiant, almost glowing, but their eyes held something wrong, something too calm, too empty. Marcus called it a miracle. He gave Finch a large payment and dismissed him. But Finch couldn't believe it was healing. He wrote that what he had seen wasn't recovery, it was replacement. He felt that something precious had been taken from the house, and something else, something unnatural, had taken its place. "I saw not the blush of health," he wrote, "but the cold gleam of porcelain." For the next 5 years, Finch watched from a distance. The sisters became famous in Boston society, admired, envied, gossiped about. But they didn't quite belong anywhere. They were like living statues, perfectly preserved, smiling and graceful, yet oddly hollow. Finch noticed that their laughter was always the same. Their jokes never changed. Their opinions froze in time. It was as if their minds, just like their bodies, were stuck in amber. They had become living dolls, beautiful but not truly alive. By 1876, whispers began. At first it was small talk. How strange it was that the Callahan girls never aged, how their dresses and hairstyles always seemed a few years behind the trend. But rumors in Boston spread slowly and sharply. Friends from their youth had grown older, married, had children. Yet Ara and Isolde were unchanged, untouched by time. One old newspaper column from that era said, "To see the Callahan sisters is to see a photograph brought to life, a moment from the past made permanent. One wonders if Mr. Callahan's love is a blessing or the work of a taxidermist." The writer had no idea how close to the truth that observation really was. Finch couldn't let it go. He began investigating in secret, tracking down old servants who had once worked in the Callahan mansion. Most refused to talk, bound by money or fear, but one young maid, Clara, who had been dismissed, finally spoke. She told Finch that during the sister's illness, a strange man had come to the house at night. He wasn't a doctor. He arrived in a carriage without a family crest, carrying a locked iron box. He was tall and unnaturally thin, with eyes that never blinked. He stayed with Marcus Callahan for hours in the study, and when he left, the house felt colder, permanently colder. Clara said that after their recovery, the sisters sometimes froze completely, standing still for hours, staring into nothing, as if waiting for someone's command. Her words shook Finch. The unblinking man, the iron box. This wasn't medicine. It was a ritual, a trade, a kind of science no one should touch. Finch began exploring Boston's dark corners, meeting occultists, fake healers, and secret philosophers. He searched for any trace of a man who promised permanence. His journal became a descent into shadow. He wrote about hidden auctions where forbidden books were sold for fortunes, and whispers of a secret group of powerful men, industrialists, judges, scholars, who called themselves the Stygian Fellowship. Their goal wasn't wealth or fame, it was mastery over time itself. To stop aging, to halt decay, to conquer death. At first it sounded like madness, but Finch found proof. Documents, bank transfers, hidden correspondences, all showing that these men, including Marcus Callahan, were funding an organization called the Boston Society for Chronological Study. Publicly, it seemed like a respectable academic group. Privately, Finch suspected it was a cover for experiments that defied nature itself. Each member, Finch discovered, had suffered a terrible loss: a wife, a child, a parent. They were not driven by greed, but by fear of mortality. "They speak of progress," Finch wrote, "but their work leads back to the oldest darkness. They want the power of gods but possess the hearts of frightened children, ready to sacrifice anything to stop their toys from breaking." And really, if you had that power, if you could freeze a perfect moment or person forever, could you resist? The temptation would be endless and the cost unthinkable. By 1881, 10 years had passed since the Callahan sisters' so-called recovery. They should have been grown women in their late 20s. Instead, they still looked like teenagers. What once made them admired now made them feared. People began avoiding them. Their house turned from a symbol of prestige into one of dread. It was no longer a home. It was a shrine to something unnatural. Finch arranged to visit Ara, the older sister, under the excuse of a social call. He needed to see her with his own eyes. He found her sitting in the conservatory, surrounded by plants that had bloomed and died dozens of times over while she stayed exactly the same. Her skin was flawless, like marble, beautiful but cold. Her eyes were bright but empty, like a memory playing on repeat. She talked about a concert she said she'd attended last week, but the event she described had happened 9 years earlier. When Finch asked her about the future, she smiled gently and said, "The future is today, Dr. Finch. It is always today." It was the most haunting thing he ever heard. She wasn't living. She was looping, trapped in a perfect but dead cycle. The pact her father made hadn't just stopped her aging. It had stopped her from changing, from growing, from being human. As Finch left, she slipped a folded paper into his hand. Her calm expression cracked for just a moment, her eyes filled with terror. "He watches," she whispered. "He always watches." On the paper was a drawing, a serpent devouring its own tail, the ancient symbol of infinity. But inside the circle, a lotus flower strangled by the snake's coils, a symbol of rebirth being choked by eternity. It was a message, a cry for help from a soul trapped in a perfect, endless cage. That symbol, the Ouroboros crushing the lotus, became Finch's obsession. It wasn't a known symbol in alchemy or religion. It was something unique, a clue. He spent months buried in Boston's oldest libraries, searching through dusty manuscripts. Finally, he found it, in a rare book privately printed and bound in human skin. The title, Somnus Infinitum, The Endless Sleep. It wasn't a spell book, not exactly. It was an early scientific manual, twisted, experimental, blurring the line between science and sorcery. It described a process where the life energy of one being could be drawn out and used to keep another in a state of eternal stillness. It didn't grant true immortality, only permanence. And the cost was horrifying. To make one thing last forever, something else had to keep feeding it, constantly. It wasn't a one-time exchange, it was a bond, parasitic and unending. The book spoke of creating a vessel, a living anchor that would drain life from one source and feed it to another, locking both in a terrible kind of balance. The subject would be locked in perfect, unchanging stillness. The vessel, however, was something else entirely. The old book spoke about it in disturbing, uncertain terms. It called the vessel only the withered prince. The source, it hinted, had to be alive, something full of energy and spirit. The drawing from Somnus Infinitum showed a serpent biting its own tail, a sign of endless stasis, and a lotus being consumed, representing life drained away. The Callahan sisters weren't simply trapped in time. They were part of a horrifying cycle, a living system that demanded something, or someone, to pay the price. Their unnatural youth was being kept alive by the slow, relentless draining of another being's life. Suddenly, the series of mysterious disappearances haunting Boston's poorest districts for years began to make dreadful sense. Young, healthy men and women taken from the streets, never seen again. The police had no evidence, no direction. But Finch now had an idea so grim it chilled him. Could these missing people be the source? Were their lives feeding the sisters' endless beauty? What if this wasn't a miracle at all, but a machine? A terrible device made of flesh and blood? Finch realized he was standing before something far greater than the Callahan family. This was not about two women. It was about a hidden empire that saw human life as a resource to be mined. The Stygian Fellowship wasn't just a brotherhood of mourning men. It was an organized secret network that functioned like a vampiric machine. He needed to find the vessel, the withered prince, the living engine that kept this nightmare running. His search led him to a private sanatorium outside Boston, a place funded by a group of anonymous investors. When he checked the records, the names on the funding list matched too closely with members of the fellowship. The place was called the Brookline Asylum for the Chronically Afflicted. It claimed to treat rare degenerative diseases, not mental illness. Finch faked a recommendation letter to get inside, posing as a doctor interested in their experimental methods. The director, Dr. Silas Croft, was a severe, cold man who guided him through the immaculate halls. Everything looked spotless, silent, and unnervingly perfect. Each patient stayed in a private room, their faces hidden behind thin, white veils. Croft said it was for privacy and dignity. Finch knew it was to hide who they truly were. While pretending to take notes, Finch managed to steal a patient list. His eyes froze when he saw one particular name, Thomas Callahan, Marcus Callahan's firstborn son. Thomas was supposed to have died years ago from a rare genetic illness, long before the sisters were born. But he hadn't died. He had been hidden away. Thomas was the vessel. He was the withered prince. That night, Finch picked the lock to Thomas's room. What he found was beyond nightmare. The boy still lived, if such a word even applied. He looked centuries old, his skin thin as paper, his limbs shrunken and frail. He breathed shallowly, a faint ghost of life. Strange metal tubes and glass channels connected his body to a large humming machine. Inside those tubes ran a faintly glowing liquid. The machine gave off a low, hungry vibration, and Thomas's eyes were open, clear, ancient, and filled with agony so deep it felt like it could break the air. He could not speak, but his eyes screamed louder than words ever could. Finch understood. Marcus Callahan had not only sacrificed strangers for his daughter's eternal beauty. He had used his own son. He had turned the boy into a living source of energy, a dying god in a child's body, feeding the eternal youth of his sisters. Thomas was the family's hidden sin, the terrible cost of their perfection. His slow decay was their immortality. Finch saw the glowing fluid pumping through the tubes and knew it had to be the extracted essence of life itself, the bloom. It was being drawn from Thomas's frail body, processed through that sinister machine, and somehow transferred to Ilara and Isolde. But he didn't yet know how. He couldn't stay long. Dr. Croft had looked at him with suspicion earlier. He needed proof before he escaped. With shaking hands, he filled a small syringe with the glowing fluid. On the table beside the bed, he saw a silver locket. Without thinking, he pocketed it. Then he fled into the night, his heart pounding, the vial of fluid warm against his chest. Back in his lab, Finch studied the strange substance under his microscope. What he saw defied all known science. It wasn't blood, and it wasn't plasma. It was alive, filled with tiny glowing particles that pulsed slowly, like stars breathing in darkness. It was raw life, purified and detached from its host. The words from Somnus Infinitum came to him again. The soul's light may be poured like fine wine, leaving behind the husk. He opened the silver locket. Inside were two portraits. On one side, a young, bright-eyed boy of 10, Thomas before his imprisonment. On the other, a woman he didn't recognize. Her face was calm, intelligent, almost defiant, her dark eyes full of purpose. Below her portrait was a tiny engraving, Lenora, my life, my bloom. Who was Lenora? Why was her image in Thomas's room? Her name didn't appear in any Callahan records. It was another secret, another ghost whispering from behind the walls. Finch realized the machine, the knowledge behind it, hadn't started with Thomas. It had started with her. Finch knew the Fellowship would soon discover his intrusion at the asylum. They would come for him. He had to uncover everything before they silenced him. Using his last contacts, he searched through old archives and personal favors, trying to find anything about Lenora. At last, a retired city clerk, bitter toward Boston's powerful families, gave him an answer. Lenora wasn't a socialite. She had been a scientist, a self-taught engineer and biologist in the 1850s. Her research on cellular regeneration had drawn both admiration and outrage. She believed aging wasn't fate, but a flaw in the design of life that could be fixed. But in 1858, her laboratory burned to the ground and she vanished. Officials called it an accident. The clerk hinted otherwise. Marcus Callahan, young and ambitious then, had been her main sponsor. He was obsessed with her mind and her spirit. When she refused his marriage proposal, he didn't just walk away. Soon after, her lab was destroyed and she was gone. Months later, Callahan married a wealthy woman of proper standing, starting his spotless public life. Finch's blood ran cold as he pieced it together. Callahan hadn't discovered the secrets of Somnus Infinitum. He had stolen them. He had taken Lenora's life's work, silenced her forever, and used her discoveries to build his empire of death. The entire Fellowship's foundation was based on her stolen genius. Lenora was the first victim. She was the true source. Her brilliance had been turned into a curse upon generations. Finch feared her work had been far more dangerous than anyone had ever known. Now he saw the entire pattern clearly. The Fellowship wasn't just preserving life, it was controlling it. They used the technology not just for immortality, but for power. Finch found hints of bribery, blackmail, and manipulation. Judges who changed rulings without reason, politicians voting against the people, rivals who simply vanished or fell into illness. The Fellowship used their life-draining process as a weapon. Some victims weren't killed, but placed in an endless sleep, frozen and forgotten. It was the perfect form of control, a murder without blood, a prison without walls. Who could resist such power? Finch understood then that he wasn't an investigator anymore. He was a target. Men in gray coats began to watch his home. His letters were opened. His friends avoided him, afraid. He was being erased step by step. Before they could take him, he hid his research, the journal, the vial, and the locket, in a trunk with a false bottom. He sent it to his estranged brother in the countryside with a note: "Open only if I disappear." His last journal entry was quiet, resigned, but defiant. "They will say I am insane. They will use my own science against me. They will lock me in a white room and call me delusional. But I have seen the machine beneath the garden. I have seen the dying God that feeds the eternal angels. The truth is in this book. The truth bleeds through. Find it. Avenge her. Avenge Lenora." History recorded Dr. Alistair Finch's end as madness. The Boston Medical Society declared him unfit, obsessed with morbid fantasies. His colleagues testified that his mind had broken. His family, pressured by the Fellowship, agreed to his confinement. His name was erased as though he had never lived. He spent his last decade in Danvers State Asylum, never speaking again. Nurses said he would sit by the window each day, staring toward Boston, drawing in the dust, a serpent eating its tail, and within it a fading lotus. And what of the Callahan sisters? After Finch's fall, they vanished from public life. The grand Beacon Hill mansion turned into a fortress. Marcus Callahan died a recluse in 1899, guarding his perfect, ageless daughters. His will was eerie, his fortune left to a charitable trust run by the Fellowship's leaders. Its first rule, the perpetual care of his daughters and of the unfortunate Thomas, ensuring their comfort for the rest of their natural lives. But their lives would never end. The mansion became sealed, silent, a tomb for the living. The sisters became Boston's ghostly myth, the girls who never grew old, Stories of strange lights at their windows and soft laughter in the night filled the city's folklore. But the machine needed fuel. And so, the disappearances continued, quieter now, hidden by the Fellowship's wealth and reach. Thomas still fed the machine. The Porcelain Sisters still drank from the stolen bloom. If you've read this far, whisper the words. The truth bleeds through. Because now you understand, some legends are true. In 1905, the world thought it ended. A great fire consumed the Callahan mansion, leaving nothing but ash. Investigators found no bodies, only fragments of melted metal and scorched stone. The report claimed the sisters had perished, their remains destroyed by the blaze. It was a clean, believable end to a dark family story. But Finch's journal tells another tale. In his final pages, written in trembling ink, he warned, "They cannot let the sisters be found." As medical science moves forward, their existence would become an unbearable curiosity. Just one drop of their blood under a modern microscope would reveal everything. The stasis belongs to a forgotten age, a time that can no longer be hidden. They would not take the risk. They would not attempt to heal them. They would wipe the slate clean. They would erase every trace. They would call it an accident. The fire was not a mistake. It was purification, a final merciless act of erasure. The Stygian Fellowship was cutting away its most dangerous and visible secret. They were protecting their legacy, preparing for the future. But there was one strange thing about that fire that never made sense, something that haunted the men who fought the blaze for years. No bodies were found, not a single bone, not even a piece of flesh remained. It was as if the sisters had vanished into thin air. The Fellowship claimed that the fire burned hot enough to leave nothing behind. But those who understood fire knew better. Even in the worst infernos, something always survives. The whispered rumor was that the sisters were taken away long before the flames began, that the Fellowship, with its strange forbidden science, had found another way to handle its precious assets, that Ara and her sister were not destroyed but quietly moved, stored away somewhere, waiting for the right moment to return. This is the point where the story turns from history into a nightmare that breathes. Because if they were not destroyed, then where did they go? This question tormented those few who knew fragments of the truth. What would anyone do with two perfectly preserved young women who were, in truth, nearly 50 years old? You couldn't release them. You couldn't kill them, at least not in any ordinary sense. You could only hide them. After the fire, the Stygian Fellowship began to transform. They shed their old symbols and occult language, taking on a new mask, modern, scientific, and much harder to recognize. They became a foundation, a charitable trust, a biomedical research group. Their money and influence drifted out of the shadowy drawing rooms of Boston and into bright laboratories and polished boardrooms. Their names appeared on universities, hospitals, and scientific grants. They became the unseen builders of the world to come. And their central mission, the conquest of decay, aging, and death, never ended. It only went deeper into the dark. Finch's journal gives the most chilling clue of all. He discovered from a note in the Somnus Infinitum that the stasis effect could be strengthened, refined. The subject could be placed into a sleep so deep, so perfect, that even under the most careful study, they would appear dead. It was called the Cold Luna. The text spoke of a strange ritual involving certain chemicals and harmonic frequencies that could send a body into that silent sleep, and another set of tones and compounds that could bring them back. It was, in essence, a biological switch. My belief is that the Fellowship never burned the sisters. They simply turned them off. They put them into a cold slumber. They could be anywhere now, hidden in a sealed basement beneath a private hospital, or locked inside a cryogenic vault in a research facility, disguised in plain sight. two flawless figures waiting for their masters to awaken them once more. The fire was just a show for the public. The true horror is that the Callahan sisters might still exist somewhere, untouched by time, their youth frozen by a secret power that has only grown smarter and more refined. And that power never died, it simply changed form. It still operates quietly beneath the surface of our reality, disguised as progress, philanthropy, and science. They are not just relics, they are proof of what their creators achieved and what they still control. The men who own that secret are no longer Boston industrialists. They have become the hidden rulers of our age. Now, we must talk about Thomas, the withered prince. The fire at the Callahan estate drew public attention, but another smaller, quieter incident took place the very next day. At the Brookline Asylum for the Chronically Afflicted, a small electrical fire broke out in a remote wing, in the room of a single long-term patient. The man, unnamed and forgotten, supposedly died from smoke inhalation. His files were lost in the fire. His remains were cremated before anyone could ask questions. It was another neat ending. Dr. Silas Croft, the asylum's head, soon retired with a large pension and relocated to a private island in the Caribbean. The fellowship was finishing what it started, cutting off every tie to its old existence. Thomas, the very heart of their strange experiments, was no longer needed. The sisters were asleep. The science had evolved. They didn't need him anymore. Maybe they had discovered a new way to draw out the bloom. Maybe their methods had grown vast and efficient, turning from a small, secret ritual into something industrial, something global. Think about it. The 20th century overflowed with chaos, wars, plagues, genocides, millions of vanished lives. What better cover could there be for an organization that feeds on human vitality? Under the smoke of history's great tragedies, they could harvest freely. The fellowship learned to move with the world's pulse. They stopped stealing from the streets and began to guide the fate of nations. Finch wrote one terrifying line in his notes. What if war itself is not a breakdown of peace, but a harvest well planned? What if the suffering we fear is simply the field that feeds them? That is the true size of the nightmare Finch discovered. It was never about two girls. It was about a system, a machine that draws power from life itself and hides within the story of our world. I still have the vial Finch took from Thomas's room. I had it tested by a friend working in a private genetic lab. I told him it was from an ancient dig site. The results came back as something he could barely describe. He called me late one night, shaking. He said the liquid broke every known rule of biology. It contained human mitochondrial DNA, but its structure was impossible, like energy trapped in liquid form, alive and humming at the quantum level. He said it was pure cellular power. When I refused to tell him its origin, he panicked. 2 days later, his lab suffered a total system crash. Every file related to the test was destroyed. His backups were corrupted. He was placed on indefinite leave. They know I still have it. And even now, they are still erasing traces. You must understand how these men think. The members of the Stygian Fellowship do not believe they are villains. They see themselves as saviors. They see ordinary humanity as a flawed experiment, weak, mortal, wasteful. They believe they are improving it. In their minds, they are gardeners, shaping life itself. People are weeds to be cleared or rare flowers to be preserved. To them, sacrificing a few or even millions for ultimate control over life and death is not wicked. It is progress. They are beyond morality. Finch once wrote, "Arguing with them about ethics is like debating a surgeon about the holiness of the flesh he cuts. They see only systems and mechanisms. The soul, to them, is irrelevant. Their power lies not just in wealth, but in secrecy and patience. They plan in centuries, not decades. Their knowledge passes quietly from parent to child, generation after generation. The descendants of the first fellowship members now sit in the world's highest places. They govern companies, shape science, fund leaders, and control the stories we tell ourselves. You see their faces in interviews. You admire their strength, their health, their agelessness, their good fortune. You think it's genes or privilege. But behind the curtain, there's a darker machine at work, a trade, an exchange, a theft of time. The Callahan Sisters were their first triumph, the first successful proof. But how many more have there been since then? How many of the powerful, the untouchable, have shared in that secret? What if their true currency isn't money, but time itself? What if the rich and strong have learned to steal life from those who will never be missed? This is the heart of the forbidden truth. The world is not ruled by who we think. It is ruled by a few who have defeated death itself. Now, let's speak of the maid, Clara. She was the one who told Finch about the unblinking man. Her story was the first crack in the mask. After meeting Finch, she vanished. Her family was told she had taken work overseas with a wealthy family in England. She was never seen again. Finch, being careful as always, searched for the truth. The family didn't exist. The ship ticket she supposedly bought was fake. She had been erased like so many others, but Clara was smart. Afraid of Marcus Callahan and his men, she left behind something to protect herself. She wrote a letter, a confession of everything she saw, and left it with her priest, Father Michael, to be opened only if she disappeared. When she did, he took it to the police. An investigation started, and ended just as quickly. Two polite men in suits visited him. They warned of the damage such a wild story could do to the church and to him. They mentioned the orphanage he helped run and how its funding depended on generous donors. The message was clear. The letter vanished from police files. Father Michael was sent to a small parish far away, where he died soon after of a sudden illness. But he had done one last brave thing. Before he was moved, he made a copy of Clara's letter and hid it inside the back of the oldest Bible in his new church. It stayed there for more than a century, forgotten, gathering dust, until 2019, when the church was closed and the letter was found. Clara's shaky handwriting confirmed every word Finch had written, but she added something horrifying. She described what she saw in the iron box carried by the unblinking man. It wasn't medical equipment. It was a small, ornate cage. Inside it was a bird. She said it was a nightingale, and when it sang, the glass in the room trembled. A nightingale. The detail sounds poetic, impossible. But it fits the fellowship's strange science. The Somnus Infinitum spoke of using sound, specific vibrations, to trigger the stasis process. It said a unique tone could lock the body's structure in place. What if that bird was the final key? What if its song was the living code that turned the human body into a frozen vessel? Clara wrote that after the bird sang, a faint shimmering dust filled the room, and the sisters, lying on couches, drifted into a deep stillness beyond death. When they woke, they were changed. That detail changes everything. The fellowship's technology wasn't just chemical, it was alive. It used the natural resonance of living things, twisted into a weapon. That means their science could be hidden anywhere. You wouldn't need giant machines or laboratories. If the trigger was sound, music, vibration, a living creature, their process could be done in secret. The iron box wasn't a device. It was a complete kit. Think about what that means. What other natural forces have they stolen and turned into tools? What other laws of life do they bend? We trust the science we are given, but who gave it to us? What if there is another branch of science, one hidden from the world, where biology and physics blend into something we would call magic? The nightingale is proof that the truth we live in is only part of the story. The greatest secrets aren't buried in data or locked away. They are woven into nature itself, in the song of a bird, the pulse of light, the structure of our very cells. And that is why they are so powerful, because they hide in the open, in the things we never question. What should we even look for? We don't know the right questions to ask. So let's go back to the sisters themselves, Ara and Isolde. What was life like for them? We have Finch's notes and Clara's testimony, but what about their own inner world? Finch believed their minds were looping endlessly, trapped inside a circle of fading memories. But what if the truth was even worse? What if they were aware the whole time, aware of the passing years, of the world changing around them, while they stayed frozen, helpless, unchanging? Imagine watching every friend you ever had grow old and die. Watching your city, your world, become strange and unfamiliar. New machines, new customs, new faces everywhere, while you remained locked in the body and mind of a 17-year-old. That wouldn't be a miracle. It would be the cruelest kind of punishment, a silent, endless prison. A real quote comes to mind from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. There are no beautiful surfaces without a terrible depth. The calm, unaging beauty of the Callahan Sisters was only the surface. The terrible depth was a soul that could not die, trapped behind that surface, silently screaming. There's a trace of this horror in Finch's old journal. In his final attempt to make sense of everything, he visited a medium, a well-known Boston spiritualist named Madame Eva. Finch was a man of science, and he despised what he called cheap superstition, but by then he was desperate. He brought with him the locket he had stolen from Thomas's room. Madame Eva entered a trance. She didn't summon spirits of the dead. She connected with something else entirely. She began to speak in two voices at once, one sharp and angry, the other soft and weeping, Ara and Isolde. Finch's transcript of the session is broken and nearly impossible to follow, but a few phrases stand out. The clock is a liar. A painted face. The song pinned us down. Father made a mirror, and we are trapped behind the glass. So much noise. The world is too loud now. He is so hungry. The boy in the dark room is so hungry. And then came the most haunting line, whispered in one desperate voice. Let us break. Please let us break. They wanted to die. They were begging to be allowed to decay, to age, to finally end. The so-called miracle their father had given them was in fact their curse, and they were painfully aware of every moment of it. This changes everything. The sisters were not silent dolls. They were awake. They were conscious prisoners. Ara's note to Finch, her whispered "he watches," was not just a warning. It was a risk, a coded message, a desperate attempt to reach someone beyond their prison. And the drawing she gave him, the serpent and the lotus, wasn't just an image. It was a diagnosis. She knew, at least in part, what had been done to her. She was trying to show Finch how the trap worked. This redefines them completely. They were not just victims. They were fighters, subtle, patient, clever fighters, trying to sabotage their own golden cage from the inside. Clara's secret letter supports this idea. She wrote that, in the years after their transformation, the sisters invented a secret language, small gestures, tiny signals, glances that only they understood. They could hold entire conversations without saying a word, especially when their father or other members of the fellowship were in the room. Clara had thought it was only a sisterly quirk. But what if it was more? What if they were planning something, sharing information, plotting, keeping their minds active to resist the endless stillness? What if they were looking for a way to undo what had been done? If so, it means the stasis wasn't perfect. It had cracks. It could be resisted. Maybe the human will, the conscious mind, could fight back. Perhaps what Finch saw as a looping consciousness was not a symptom of the stasis, but an act of rebellion. Maybe the sisters created those mental loops themselves to keep from losing their sense of self, to stop their minds from dissolving completely into the empty silence. They weren't just waiting for rescue, they were trying to create it. Then came the fire in 1905. Everyone assumed the Fellowship set it to erase the evidence. But what if that's wrong? What if Ara and Isolde set it themselves? What if it was their last act of defiance, their final attempt to destroy the house, to destroy themselves, and to destroy the device that kept them bound to this world? The thought is terrifying, that their only way out was to burn everything, even themselves. But it also shows incredible courage. It was a final scream of no in the face of a power that had stolen their souls. If the sisters started the fire, then the entire story changes. They weren't chess pieces, they were players. But it raises a horrible question. Did it work? Did they finally end it? Or did the Fellowship intervene, saving them against their will and hide them away in the cold chamber once again? The evidence doesn't give a clear answer. The lack of human remains could prove either theory. But there's one more clue, from the personal notes of Captain Hewitt, the fire marshal who investigated the blaze. Hewitt was known as a careful and honest man, and he was deeply unsettled by what he found. His official report was short and professional, but his private notes, which his grandson later donated to an archive, told a different story. In the ashes of the conservatory, the one room where Ara had always found peace, Hewitt found the twisted remains of a small iron birdcage, the nightingale's cage. Inside, he discovered something that shouldn't have been there: the charred pieces of a complex clockwork device, a timer. It was wired to what looked like a chemical ignition system. It was a bomb. Hewitt understood immediately what it meant. The fire had been planned. It was deliberate. He brought his findings to his superiors. They told him to forget it. The case was closed. He was reminded he had a family and a pension, so he obeyed. But he kept the notes, knowing the truth. The sisters had tried to burn their cage to the ground. This wasn't suicide, it was war. They were trying not only to free themselves, but to destroy the Fellowship's work, to burn away the secret of their own existence. It was a final act of rebellion, violent, tragic, and brave. Their true legacy isn't their beauty or mystery. It's that moment of resistance, their desperate attempt to reclaim the right to live and die on their own terms. And if they survived, it only makes their story even sadder. To have fought so hard for freedom, only to be captured again and locked into eternal sleep by the very monsters they tried to destroy. So where does that leave us now? With a story that has no clean ending, a conspiracy that has outgrown its beginnings. Two sisters who may still be sleeping somewhere, hidden deep below the surface, waiting for a dawn that will never come. The Stygian Fellowship, in its modern form, is stronger than ever. They have adapted. Their power is now quiet, invisible, absolute. They are no longer a group of Boston elites. They have become a global network. They live in the algorithms that shape our world. They hide in the formulas of the medicines we take. They hum silently through the satellites above us. They have mastered the art of being everywhere and nowhere. And the technology, born from Lenora's stolen genius and the blood of the withered prince, has likely advanced far beyond what we can imagine. Maybe they don't need stasis anymore. Maybe they've reached true regeneration, real immortality. The ability to reverse age, to cure any illness, to hold life itself hostage. A power they would never share except with those they consider worthy. The ultimate control. Think about the people who seem to never fall, who always win, who seem impossibly wise and untouchable. We call them visionaries, titans, geniuses. But what if they're just very old? What if they're the same people, the original fellowship, still alive, still ruling quietly from the shadows, using a century of stolen life? It's terrifying to imagine that our modern world might still be ruled by the same 19th century monsters who found a way to cheat death. The Callahan sisters were the beginning of it all. Their suffering was the foundation of this hidden empire. Their story isn't just a ghost story. It's a warning. It's the map of the invisible prison we all live inside without realizing it. You were never supposed to know this, but some truths refuse to stay buried. Dr. Alistair Finch's journal is one piece. Clara's letter is another. But the last piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source, the locket. The one Finch stole from Thomas's room. The one with the portrait of Lenora, the murdered inventor. I spent months trying to trace her bloodline. It was nearly impossible. Her descendants had been erased from every record. But I found one, a great-great-grandniece living quietly in Vermont, working as a librarian. I went to see her. I showed her the locket. She had never seen it before, but she recognized the face instantly. It was her ancestor, Lenora. And she told me a story whispered through generations of women in her family, that Lenora had a son. He was brilliant and kind, but he had a terrible secret, a rare genetic condition that made his body age too fast. He was growing old while still a child. Lenora's research into cellular regeneration wasn't about ambition or fame. It was about saving him. Her experiments were not for the world. They were for her son, and that boy's name was Thomas. The withered prince was not Marcus Callahan's child. He was Lenora's. Callahan didn't just steal her work, he stole her son. He took the boy she loved, the reason she worked, and turned her cure into a curse. He used her own child as the engine that powered his daughter's unholy stasis. This was the original sin of the fellowship. Not just theft or murder, but the twisting of a mother's love into horror. Callahan took the gift she had made to heal and used it to imprison life itself. The Callahan sisters were his trophies, proof that he could conquer time, using the tools of the woman who had rejected him. The Stygian Fellowship was never a society of grieving fathers. It was a gathering of arrogant men who believed their wealth gave them ownership of everything and everyone. They were willing to destroy even their own families to stay in control. They didn't fear death. They feared being forgotten. They feared change, the natural flow of generations replacing the old with the new. They wanted to stop time, to freeze the world in their image forever. A world where their power never faded, where their daughters never left. It was the purest expression of narcissism. And it is a pattern that echoes throughout history. Powerful men trying to control the uncontrollable, leaving destruction in their wake. The story of the Callahan sisters is not a strange exception. It is the clearest mirror of an ancient darkness, the same hunger that hides beneath the masks of love, progress, and protection. At its core, it is fear. Fear of the end, fear of change, consuming everything in its path. That is what Finch realized. That is what drove him to the edge of madness. He saw that the true monsters are not the ones from folklore. They are men who believe their desires are greater than the lives of others, men who would burn the world just to see their reflection in the flames. Now ask yourself, why this story and why now? Finch's journal, Clara's letter, the fire marshal's notes. They have been lost for more than a century. Why are they reappearing all at once? I believe it's because the cracks are beginning to show. The Fellowship, no matter how powerful, is not eternal. Nothing truly is. A century's worth of buried truths is a weight few could ever bear. The secrets that once thrived in the dark are beginning to strain beneath the light of the modern age. The very technologies the Fellowship helped shape are now turning against them. DNA tracing, digital archives, endless streams of data. Every transaction, every whisper leaves a mark. The world is no longer silent enough to hide monsters. Secrets grow restless under the scrutiny of progress. Maybe someone within their own ranks has started to rebel, a younger generation disgusted by the sins of their elders, trying to bring their hidden crimes into the open. Or maybe the danger isn't betrayal at all. Maybe the fault lies in the technology itself. Maybe the stillness they created is beginning to crumble. The porcelain faces are starting to fracture, the illusion of eternity losing its hold. The power that kept them frozen cannot endure forever. Nature will not tolerate defiance for long. The laws of creation can be stretched, but never truly broken. Time demands its payment, and sooner or later, everything must yield. In physics, there's a concept called quantum entanglement. Two particles bound in a strange, unseen link, forever reacting to each other no matter how far apart they drift. What if the essence they call the bloom, the life force, works by a similar law? What if all the stolen lives the Fellowship consumed through the decades remain connected, threads in a vast, invisible web of energy and memory? What if that web has started to tremble? What if those lost souls are pushing back, reaching through the cracks in the system that trapped them? The uprising might not be supernatural at all, but quantum, physical, inevitable. The truth doesn't just wait to be found. Sometimes it forces its way into the world. The story of the Callahan Sisters is not merely a ghost from history. It might be the warning tremor of a coming reckoning, a storm that has been gathering for more than 150 years. I have to believe that Finch's sacrifice meant something. That Clara's courage, Father Michael's faith, Captain Hewitt's integrity, that every small act of defiance they risked mattered. Those gestures kept a spark alive, a fragile flame of truth carried through the long shadow of silence. That flame has reached you now. You, the one hearing these words, are the next link in a chain that stretches back through time. The knowledge now belongs to you, and it is dangerous. It will change how you see the world. You'll begin to notice the patterns, the faces that never seem to age, the names that recur through history, the coincidences that aren't coincidences at all. You'll start to sense the Fellowship's touch in the invisible machinery that runs our lives. They will mock this. They will call it myth, paranoia, fiction. They will try to bury it under ridicule and distraction. They will tell you that the powerful are simply lucky, that history is random, that nothing sinister hides behind the curtain. But deep down, you will know better. You will remember the house on Beacon Hill. You will remember the withered prince locked away in the asylum. You will remember Lenora, the murdered visionary, and her stolen child. You will remember Ilara and Isolde, the girls lost behind the mirror of time. This story now breathes within you. It is a weight and a duty. You may choose to ignore it, to slip back into the comfort of forgetfulness, the illusion of peace. Or you may choose to see, to listen, to share, to carry the flame forward. Because the one thing darkness fears most is exposure. They can burn houses, they can erase names, they can silence voices. But once truth takes root in the human mind, it cannot be destroyed. They are powerful, yes, but they are few, and we are many. There is still one unanswered thread that keeps me awake at night: the nightingale, the living instrument whose song trapped the sisters outside of time. What became of it? Hewitt found its cage empty amid the ashes. Clara's final letter said that after the ritual, the man without expression took the bird and vanished. He didn't kill it. He placed it carefully in its gilded prison and walked away. Why? Why preserve the key to a prison no one was meant to escape? The Senes Infinitum offers a chilling clue. It describes the auditory catalyst as singular, one of a kind, impossible to replicate. Its unique tone was bound to the ritual itself. As the key locks, the text says, so too may it unlock. The same song that seals can also set free. The Fellowship didn't destroy the nightingale, they preserved it. For more than a century, they must have kept it alive through their dark sciences, extending its lifespan the same way they extended the sisters. It was their failsafe, their contingency plan, the reset switch to undo their own spell. Why would they ever need that? Maybe to restore balance if the containment failed. Or perhaps, more disturbingly, as leverage, a weapon to manipulate the sisters' minds, the promise of freedom dangled to keep them obedient. Yet there's one theory more dreadful than all the rest. They saved it because they intend to use it again. They plan to awaken the Callahan Sisters. Why now? Maybe their technology has advanced enough to stabilize the flaws in the first experiment. Maybe they wish to study their earliest subjects to learn from their endurance. Or maybe they have something far bolder in mind. Imagine unveiling to the modern world two young women from the 1870s, alive, unaged, undeniable proof of their mastery over life and death. It would be their grand revelation, their ascension from myth to godhood. The return of Elara and Isolde would not signal the end of their shadow empire. It would mark the beginning of its public reign. And so, the search for truth doesn't close with a final answer. It ends in waiting, a pause before the next move. The Fellowship is still out there, and they are preparing. The evidence gathered, the accounts preserved, the story told, all of it threatens their control, and they will react. They always do. I don't yet know how. It might begin with whispers of disinformation, or it might strike sharper, silencing those who speak too loudly. But I am not unprepared. I have done as Finch did. His journal, Clara's letter, every scrap of research, all have been duplicated and distributed across borders, entrusted to hands that will release them if I vanish or meet an untimely end. I have learned from the mistakes of those who came before. This time, the truth will not die in darkness. But even that isn't the greatest shield. The real protection is you. Your attention, your refusal to look away. Every person who hears this, every mind that remembers, weakens their hold. The Fellowship's dominion is built on ignorance. Our strength is in awareness. This is the quiet war of centuries, a battle for reality itself. And tonight, whether you meant to or not, you have joined that war. You've seen the map, glimpsed the enemy hidden in plain sight. They have shaped our world, twisted it, fed on it, believing we are nothing but fuel for their endless machine. But they are wrong. Humanity's hunger for truth, its will to resist, its stubborn light, these are forces no darkness has ever conquered. Not Finch's despair, not Clara's sorrow, not the sisters' suffering could kill it. And it burns now, in you. I often find my thoughts drifting back to that vial of luminous fluid, the fragment of living energy Finch stole from Thomas's room. It still exists, sealed inside a lead-lined box in a secret place known only to me. It is the last surviving piece of their machinery, the last trace of that unholy experiment. Sometimes I consider destroying it, letting the earth reclaim what was stolen from it. It feels cursed, humming softly with echoes of agony, and yet I cannot bring myself to do it, because it is also something sacred. It is proof, undeniable, unexplainable proof that all of this was real. It's the single object that science cannot dismiss, and perhaps, within that glow, lies the means to undo everything they built. If Lenora's original brilliance could be reborn through this fragment, if her true, kind purpose could be rediscovered, maybe a real cure could emerge, not just for the sisters, but for the sickness of greed and power that gave birth to the Fellowship. It would be poetic justice, the poison becoming the medicine, the very thing they created to defy death becoming the tool of their undoing. I think Finch would have smiled at that thought. This is what I hope for. That this tale serves not merely as a warning, but as a beginning. That it ignites something in a new generation of seekers, of scientists, of truth-tellers who refuse to be silenced. Those who will pick up where Finch left off, who will keep asking the forbidden questions, who will finally drag the Fellowship out from their fortress of lies and into the open. The truth is scattered, in dusty archives, in forgotten letters, in corporate ledgers masked by numbers. It's a puzzle with too many missing pieces. I have given you only the corners. The rest is yours to find. Trace the patterns, follow the trails, question the stories you were taught to believe. Because history isn't a finished book. It's alive, breathing, waiting to be rewritten by those brave enough to see through the veil. The past is speaking. The ghosts are whispering. We must listen. What does it really mean to be timeless? We celebrate it, imagining eternal youth, unending beauty, the escape from decay. But the Callahan Sisters' fate shows the lie hidden in that dream. To be unchanging is not to live. It is to exist without motion, without growth, without the pulse of transformation. Life is movement, contradiction, renewal. To stop that process is to carve a statue out of a living soul. The Fellowship believed they had conquered death, but what they truly created was something far more tragic, an elegant kind of death, the death of becoming. In their quest to control life, they became its destroyers, consuming others to feed their illusion of permanence. They are the real withered princes, not the sisters, but the architects of their prison. Their bodies may persist, but their spirits have long rotted away, consumed by the hunger for control. They wander through power's corridors like ghosts, their humanity hollowed out by the centuries. And the sisters, whether their bodies lie in ashes or still slumber in a vault, stand as the purest symbol of what we lose when power eclipses compassion. They are the embodiment of innocence devoured by ambition, of light trapped inside a machine built for control. Their story is not just history. It is a mirror held up to our own time, written in the language of horror to describe the truth of our civilization. It reveals what happens when a few frightened souls are allowed to rewrite the laws of existence for everyone else. This is not merely the Fellowship's secret, it is the secret of the world itself. But secrets decay, they leak, and this one is bleeding out faster than they can contain it. The truth is no longer patient, it demands to be known. In the end, this story offers a choice. You can dismiss it as myth, as exaggeration, as fantasy built on old fragments, or you can see it for what it truly is, a glimpse into the machinery beneath the surface of our world. Ask yourself, if a power like this really existed, if men could twist time, erase people, and rewrite history, wouldn't this be exactly the kind of world we'd find ourselves in? A world of inherited empires, of dynasties that never die, of mysteries disguised as coincidences. A world where the official story never quite fits the evidence. Perhaps the Fellowship's greatest illusion wasn't convincing the world they don't exist, but convincing us that this broken world is the natural order, that it could never be any other way. They've turned their own prison into our reality. Dr. Finch died thinking he had failed. He died alone, locked away, branded insane, his life's work dismissed and forgotten. He never knew whether his journal would survive, whether anyone would ever listen, but he wrote it anyway. He defied them. He left behind his truth, trusting that someday someone would read it and understand. Tonight, we have done just that. We have heard his words. We have honored Clara's courage, the sisters' agony, Lenora's brilliance, and Thomas's silent pain. We've pulled one dark thread and watched it unravel through everything we thought we knew. This knowledge doesn't bring comfort. It brings clarity. Sharp, merciless, liberating clarity. It is heavy, yes. But it is also light. It is the torch the darkness cannot survive. Handle it with care, but never let it go. My work isn't finished. In truth, it's only beginning. Finch's journal names others, other families, other branches of the fellowship whose influence reaches far beyond Boston. Their shadow stretches across New York, London, and the high towers of power that dominate our age. The Callahan story is only the first chapter. There are more experiments, more victims, more unmarked graves buried under the floorboards of history. I will keep searching. I will keep following the threads. I will not stop until the last of their secrets is unearthed. But this is not something one person can do alone. It requires many eyes, many minds, many hearts unafraid of the dark. That is why I am calling to you, not as a spectator, but as an ally. Become an investigator. Look into the past of your own city. Study the names that never seem to fade. Trace the family lines that stretch too far, too perfectly. Watch for the symbols, the serpent, the lotus, hidden in the stonework of old buildings, etched into corporate logos, woven into church windows. These are their fingerprints, the quiet signs of their ownership. They believe they own history itself. It's time to prove them wrong. The truth is dangerous. It shatters illusions. But it is also the only thing that can set us free. This story is just the first offering, the first light in a long night. There will be others. The voices of the past have found a way to speak again, and this time, no one will silence them. Change is coming. The world will never be the same, and what remains once the story fades from sound to silence? Perhaps just a feeling, that strange chill that lingers in your chest. You recognize it, don't you? The quiet realization that some part of this is real. Not every name, not every event, but the essence of it. The sense that power moves unseen beneath the surface of our lives. We've always known somewhere deep inside that the world is being steered by invisible hands. The Callahan sisters simply gave that fear a face, a name. They made the unspoken visible. And that's why their story endures, because it resonates with the oldest suspicion in human memory. That we are not alone at the top of the chain. That predators walk among us, feeding not on flesh but on our time, our vitality, our future. This story isn't meant to leave you in fear. It is meant to awaken something fiercer, anger, the kind born from betrayal, the righteous anger of the deceived, the anger that fuels vigilance, courage, resistance. The world is dark, yes, but darkness has never been eternal. The light of one small flame can drive back miles of shadow. Finch was that flame. Clara was that flame. Ilara and Isolde were that flame. And now that flame burns in you. Together, those lights can grow into a fire no power on earth can smother. This is no longer just my story to tell. It belongs to you now. But there is one more thought, perhaps the most chilling of all. The Fellowship's true secret may not be the stasis itself. It may be what they learned from it. For more than a century, they've studied the frozen minds of the Callahan sisters. Watched how consciousness adapts when time stops. Imagine the knowledge that could be drawn from that. How memories are built, how identity can be reshaped, how will can be bent. Their technology for controlling the body was only the beginning. The ultimate goal has always been control of the mind, and I believe they have succeeded. That is why our world feels fractured, chaotic, divided beyond reason, why we're so easily provoked, distracted, and turned against one another. We are living inside their grandest experiment, a psychological stasis stretched across an entire planet. The same melody that once held two girls captive now echoes through our devices, our screens, our endless noise. A digital nightingale's song keeping us transfixed while the world shifts beneath our feet. The story of Alara and Isolde isn't ancient history, it's prophecy. Their prison has grown. It now holds us all.